Hello, this is Coach Tony coming to you once again with our next lesson in addressing mental health. I want to talk to you today on the topic of trauma and abuse. Trauma and abuse. I will be referencing some work that had been done and by a lady by the name of Diane Langberg, who's a doctor who has done extensive research in this area. And I'll be addressing some information regarding abuse in Kenya, as well as it applies to us here in the U.S. So, generally speaking, abuse happens globally, but we want to look at that today. Today, I want us to look at you being able to be familiar with the different types of abuses that will occur in various countries, in particular the U.S. and Kenya. You should be able to understand the impact that abuse has on the lives of those who are victims of abuse. And then you will learn how you can respond to those who may have been in a situation where they've been abused, or you can apply some of these healing principles to your own life in self care. So let us look at some types of abuses that are seen. The word abuse comes from the Latin word abutor, to use wrongfully, to insult, defile, to tarnish, um, and all are violation, really, of the equality that is given to us in the image of God. All of us are created unique, and we have value in having been created by a loving God. And so we want to treat people with respect and with dignity. And so the first type of abuse that we see is physical abuse. This is using physical power to control, manipulate, or intimidate another person. Some physical abuse may even leave marks, and others try to use physical power to control or to manipulate someone. And so there is physical abuse. I think we all understand what that is. And we've looked at physical abuse as far as being kids, and sometimes we've gotten into fights. Sometimes parents may be a little heavy-handed in their discipline of children, and so sometimes that comes out in the context of physical abuse. Between 25 and 30% of male and female children suffer from abuse. Between 25 and 30% of male and female children suffer from some type of physical abuse. 31% of women in the United States will experience one episode of violence at the hand of a husband or a partner, a boyfriend. And so that's just here in the U.S. More than 3 women are murdered daily by a husband or partner. Get that. More than 3 women are murdered daily by a husband or or partner. Pregnant women are more likely to be victims of homicide than to die from any other cause. And I think some of that is because whenever you have a child, the responsibility of that child and the pressure to care for that child, and then you have the denial of that child, or someone is accusing another person of cheating in that relationship, where you may even have the male to not want to take responsibility for the child, and the woman will respond or react, and sometimes it even move beyond homicide to suicide, because that individual, that woman, feels so hopeless and rejected that they feel like that there's no reason to live. And so we understand too that physical abuse can occur, um, or be it can be terrifying, it can be oppressive and damaging, even when physical evidence is not on the body. And so It's a terrifying experience to go through physical abuse. And then there's verbal abuse. Using verbal power to control, manipulate, or intimidate another person. I think we've seen a lot of that here in the U.S., where we've had leaders who would use their power to verbally abuse people in the country, and we're seeing a lot of division in our country because of people using verbal abuse. And now it's quite common to use verbal abuse amongst just the general population when you have leaders who would use it towards one another. And so goes the leader, so goes the country. But there's hope. So verbal abuse, what is it? It's using verbal power to control or manipulate or intimidate another person. Name calling, sneering, cursing someone out, um, parents to child, parents calling their children stupid, making them feel less than important. Teachers sometimes use verbal abuse against children, and they grow up feeling insecure. Other children use words. Sometimes children can be very cruel, very mean. And I remember growing up, and my skin is very dark, and you would hear other black children calling other black children black. You say, wow, is that a compliment or what? I mean, you sound like you're angry and you're mad, but the prejudices and racist and discriminatory views that were oppressed upon a people winds up sometime being acted out upon those people as they engage their own people. And so we have to be careful of verbal abuse. Okay. Then there is emotional abuse. Emotional abuse is the systemic tearing down of another human being by rejecting, ignoring, terrorizing, isolating, or corrupting them. Let me say that again. It is the systematic tearing down of another human being by rejecting, ignoring, terrorizing, isolating, or corrupting them. So emotional power can be used against another person or even over another person. And so a lot of times we see this in relationships between a man and a woman, where one individual will use emotional power over that individual to control or to manipulate or to get what they want, because there is a bond or an attachment that is there. And then we have to understand it is also the use of emotional power in a relationship to control or intimidate, as I said earlier. Emotion abuse is often more subtle and often accompanies physical or verbal abuse. And so this is where you find that someone can use emotional abuse to keep a person isolated from their friends and from their family, block them socially, and sometimes an individual may try to keep that person from engaging with social media to isolate them, and they feel alone, and that is also a form of emotional abuse. And then there is spiritual abuse. And spiritual abuse is the use of spiritual power, position, or information to control. We've seen a lot of occult type leaders in the world who are religious based, who abuse their powers to control the people, to make them get them to do things that God did not say for them to do. And so we've seen I think about an individual named Jim Jones here, who had a lot of people to come to a place here in the United States, a camp that he had, and he gave them all some, I think it was some kind of Kool-Aid, and they all drank it, and they died from it. But this guy had controlled them so much. Then we have the guy who is known for so much murder and mayhem, Charles Manson, here in the United States, and who was an occult leader, and he basically had the people doing whatever he wanted them to do. Um, and he spiritually abused those people. These can be leaders of churches who distort the truth of God's word, force people to give money or sex or their material things, and they twist the Bible against God's character. So always, the things that people do does not reflect on the character of God. He has given everyone their own will to choose, to love, to hate, to do good or to do bad with. And so the character of God is not relegated to the character of people. If anything, by him creating us, we understand that God is good and is giving us the grace to live each day. And so I want to just make that note that although we see bad in the world, there is a good God who will bring justice to all these type of abuses. One day we will have to give an answer for those things that are done. And then, you know, we understand in spiritual abuse that it always involves a distortion of truth based on the sacred text, and it always involves the distortion of the character of God. Okay, so let's be mindful of those type of abuses. And then there is sexual abuse. Sexual abuse is any sexual activity, visual, verbal, or physical, engaged in without consent. Without consent is the operative word, and it also can include verbal as well in sexual abuse. A child is never considered able to give consent. A child is never able to give consent when it comes to sex. And so anyone who is having sex with a child, that is sex abuse. Also, most sexual abuse of children is perpetrated by a family member or someone who is known to the child. In the United States, there are about 80,000 reported incidents of child abuse each year. In Kenya, the cases range, I think the number is 33,929 cases of child sex abuse. This is reported by UNICEF. And out of that, there's at least close to 8,000 people, children who have been abused by rape. And that has been a 50% increase amongst those who are in the poor regions of Kenya. And so it's prevalent here in the United States. As I said, 80,000 reported cases of child sexual abuse. And in Kenya, there are close to 34,000 cases. Okay, 1 in 5 girls report being solicited for sex on the internet prior to the age of 18. That's 1 out of 5. In the United States, 20% of men report being sexually abused. No one will ever think that a man could be abused, but yes, it does happen. And that's prior to the age of 18. At least 20% of women and 12% of adolescent girls have experienced sexual assault or rape during their lifetime. About 700,000 women are sexually assaulted each year in the United States, which equivocates to more than one woman per minute being sexually assaulted. One woman per minute. Okay, and in Kenya, the Nairobi Women's Hospital reports nearly 300 survivors are treated monthly. 300 women are survivors are treated monthly for sexual assault. And you do the math there. If there are 300 a month, we have 12 months in a year. That tells you, we're talking about 36,000 women who are being sexually assaulted within that year. Close to 100,000 men, listen to this, 100,000 men are raped each year. We have an epidemic of sexual assault going on in our societies, and only 25%, listen to this, only 25% get the psychosocial support that they need. So many of the women that have gone through sexual abuse, who have gone through any type of abuse there in Kenya and even here in the United States, so about 25% of them, they never get the help that they need, the psychosocial support to help them with their mental health. They don't get the support that they need, and they're left to cope on their own. And so let's think about that. If there has been someone has said that hurt people hurt people. Hurt people hurt people. So if they're not getting the help that they need, guess what? They may indirectly or sometimes unconsciously hurt another person or pass on those behaviors on to the next generation. So it's perpetuated one year, one generation, one family to another family. But in retrospect, helping people help people. Helping people or helped people help people. Helped people help people. So you want to move from the hurting to getting the help that you need so that you can help somebody else. 2/3 of rape victims had a prior relationship with their offender. Okay, that's 2 out of 3 individuals actually knew the individual that assaulted them. It said that 70% of reported assaults are committed against those 17 years of age or younger. And in Kenya, the majority age of those who are doing the assaulting are between the ages of 13 to 20. That is about 50% of the individuals in Kenya are between, the largest portion of that are between the ages of 13 to 20. As the ages get older, it actually decreases in those who are perpetrators of assault. Um, Most are neighbors. A lot of assaults are happening through neighbors or maybe a close relative, and sometime even a parent. Unfortunately, that happens. I think it's about 11% when it comes down to parents assaulting their own children. Here in the United States, between 50 and 85% of females will experience some sort of sexual harassment, while they're at work. Some form of sexual harassment while they're at work. Okay? And so we have to understand these types of abuse. Then there is rape within itself. This is the non-consensual sexual penetration obtained by physical force, by threat of bodily harm, or at a time when the victim is incapable of giving consent due to maybe a mental illness, a mental, as we say, disability, or they're being intoxicated of some sort. Sometimes we even see women drugged at parties. We hear of women who are drugged amongst their friends in college. So be careful, young ladies, about someone giving you a drink. A matter of fact, always get your own drinks, because you never know what somebody would do to slip something in it. And next thing you know, you're incapacitated and you don't know what's going on around you. So be aware of your environment. And then again, there's sexual harassment, which is any action occurring within the workplace whereby one person is treated as the object of another's sexual prerogative. So those are some definitions and some different types of abuse. So we're going to move on to the impact of abuse. How does abuse impact, you mentally? And how can you find resources to help you? Okay? And so the impact We talk about the impact, we talk about the duration and the frequency and the intensity, all impact the impact of trauma. How long someone has been abused, how frequent and then the intensity of that abuse. And so individuals who go untreated and not get the mental help that they need will find themselves, you know, maybe being dysfunctional, sometimes getting into depression. They isolate themselves from other people. It actually hinders relationships, with those that you would potentially, uh, be friends with, or maybe would be a mate to you. Not getting treated for these things and not getting the mental health cared for can affect also your relational health with other people. Okay? Sometimes your emotions can become cold and you become calloused and you don't feel anything. You feel numb. And so at that point, you want to reach out to somebody. You want to get some help because you need to be set free. You need freedom to be the best person that you can be. You are not what happens to you. Let me say that again. You are not the bad thing that happens to you. Bad things happen and will happen to us as we live in this world. But you are not the thing that happens. And a lot of times we personalize a negative experience and make it a part of who we are, a part of our own character, a part of our own essence. And that's not true. Okay, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. All right. And so I want you to understand the impact of abuses and to get the help that you need by reaching out to someone, sharing your story in a way that is beneficial and helpful to bring healing to not only you, but to those that are around you and those who will be your future interactions. Okay, so I want us to um, see how we can get the help that we can need so that our lives can be transformed. And maybe you know someone who has gone through a type of abuse or suffering in this capacity. Maybe you can provide for them some of this information that I'm sharing with you. If you're going to help somebody, the first thing that you're going to have to do is you're going to have to come down to their level. You're going to have to meet them where they are, which means that if you want to see healing in their story or healing in your story, you must be willing to give up your glory. To give up where you are to go where they are, to identify and to empathize with the suffering that someone else has experienced. And so you must be willing to humble yourself to get the help that you need, and you must be willing to humble yourself to help somebody else get the help that they need. Okay? Uh, you must be willing to come out of the darkness. You've been in the darkness too long. You ever been in a room and you see how when you come out of a dark room, your eyes have to adjust to the light? It's going to take you a minute to make that adjustment, but you can live in the light. You can live with hope. And this is the goal, to live with hope and to have others live with hope, to overcome the tragedy so that the tragedy can be transformed to a triumph and have victory over that which is bad, over that which is evil, over that which has caused the hurt, because now you have been helped. So you must be willing to come out of the darkness, to come into the light. The darkness speaks of your pain, speaks of the hurt, speaks of the shame and the guilt. The light is where forgiveness is. Being willing to forgive yourself, being willing to forgive others so that you are not held in a mental bondage or a mental prison that affects your very soul and even um, how you interact with your purpose for living and with other people. Okay? Then you must be willing to address the truth, the lies with truth. Be willing to address the lies with truth, the truth of who you are, that you're special, that you're someone created in the image of God, that you are not the bad thing that happened to you. Bad things will happen to anyone, but you have the ability to overcome it. Recognize that. And then you must be willing to trust someone else. Because when a trust is broken in your life, when a trust is broken in your own life, you feel like you can't trust anybody again. Well, I'm here to tell you that you can hope again. You can overcome that negative thing, and you can help somebody else. So I just want you to know a few things about trauma and abuses and how you can become better and not bitter. How you can become better and not bitter. And so we will continue our discussion on mental health the next time. I'll see you. I'll list some questions for you to answer, and I look forward to interacting with you on each one of those points. Take care, and remember, you are not your pain of your past. This is Coach Tony. I'll see you next time.